In a remote village that is barely visible on the map, there's a young man named Eloy. He is quiet, shy, and always walks alone. He does not have a cell phone. He also does not have social media. Nowadays, it seems that he is the only one who is not connected to any technology. But this is not because he is not interested, but because of fear. He is afraid that if he tries to connect with the world again, another part of his life might be lost. Eloy grew up in an old hut on the side of a mountain, where the air is always cold and the nights are darker than usual. He no longer has any parents. His mother left him when he was 9 years old, and his father, no one knows where he went. The elders of the village say that there is a curse on their family, a kind of secret that should not be ignored, but also cannot be forgotten. But even so, there is one person who is always there for him, Taunton, his friend since childhood. Always noisy, always hungry, and always with gossip. Despite Eloy's dark life, Taunton was the light. When the nights were cold, Taunton would bring him stewed bananas or hot porridge. When the nights were too quiet, he would bring him stories, scary ones, sometimes just silly ones. But in recent weeks, there were things that Eloy could no longer explain. Sometimes when he woke up, there were marks on the floor of their house, circles that seemed to have been carved on purpose, but he couldn't hear anything at night. One day, he found the old radio in the closet, open, playing, even though it had been broken for a long time. In the dark, there were shadows passing by the window, but when he peeked in, there was no one. He tried to avoid it. He told himself, maybe it was just a hallucination. Maybe it was because of hunger or staying up late. But as time went on, his hunch deepened that there was a deeper reason for all this. One night, while he was with Tan by the river, they suddenly saw a strange light in the water. It was not fire, nor was it light from the house. It was a blue light that seemed to be breathing, moving like life. They approached, but when they reached the edge of the river, it disappeared. It seemed to be swallowed by darkness. They thought it was over, but when Eloy returned home, he found a piece of wet paper on his door. There was no writing, but there was a mark, a circle with an eye in the middle. Since then, he has not slept well. One night, while he was on the roof to cool off, he heard what seemed to be a growl from the forest. A low, long, and broken sound, like the laughter of a monster. It was followed by loud footsteps, but no one. He couldn't even tell Taunton. He was afraid of being mistaken for a lunatic. But he knew it was all true, especially when he found an old box under their house, with the name Amaranta carved on it. Inside the box, there was a picture of a woman with yellow eyes and a face that looked like it was being consumed by fire. There was also paper, a piece of old newspaper with an article with almost all the text removed, except for one line. She was seen crying under the moon while shadows danced behind her. That's when he remembered the last night with his mother. She cried as she hugged him, saying, "Don't follow the light, son." That same night, his father disappeared. And since then, he'd learned not to ask. But now that the signs were slowly returning, he couldn't ignore them anymore. When he told Tannen what he had seen, he didn't laugh like he used to. Instead, he was silent, seriously serious. And for the first time, Taunton said that he knew something about the Eloy family, that in the past, their clan was one of the guardians of the Mutia Ingpagidan, a type of stone that can see spirits and ghosts in two worlds, the world of the living and the world of the lost. But according to Taunton, it was once used in the wrong way. A person from Eloy's lineage tried to use the gem to summon beings from the fourth shadow, an underground dimension full of beings that should not be summoned. And that gem might just be around. Eloy suddenly became nervous, because he had seen a black stone with a red line in the middle several times, buried in the roots of a tree behind their house. Since childhood, he had only called it the bad luck stone and avoided it. But that same night, he returned there and began digging for it. After he got the stone, the air suddenly became heavy, The waves in the river seemed to change direction, and in his hand, he felt something pulse inside the stone. Was it alive? With a sudden flash of lightning, he saw a shadow standing in the distance. Thin, with a long neck and eyes that were all black. Not moving, not walking either, but with each flash of lightning, it came closer. Eloy backed away, screamed. He ran into the house, carrying the stone. At that moment, he realized he had not only obtained a gem, but had reopened the door between two worlds. And that very night, before he could fall asleep, the broken radio in the corner of his room rang again. A voice came out, whispering, "Tomorrow night, they will be back." Eloy couldn't sleep that night. The stone, dark, warm, alive, rested beside his pillow, and it felt like it was watching him. The whisper from the broken radio still echoed in his ears. Bukazing Gabi, Babalik Sila, over and over. He clutched his blanket tighter, but the chill in the room didn't go away. Something had shifted in the air, like the whole world around him was holding its breath. The next morning, he didn't say a word to Taunton. Not yet. He needed to think, needed to understand what he just uncovered. But when he stepped out of the house, the village already felt different. The trees looked older, as if they were watching. The sky, darker even in daylight. And the people, those who used to ignore him, now seemed more cautious when walking past. Some even crossed the street to avoid him. That was when Eloy remembered the stories his Lola used to whisper when he was just 5 or 6 years old. Stories of their bloodline, of guardians and spirits, of those chosen to see what others could not. He always thought they were just bedtime stories, designed to keep him from wandering off at night. But now those stories felt like warnings. And one thing came back to him clearly, a name. Matandang Solong. She was a strange woman who lived deep in the woods at the edge of the dried-up river. People used to call her Albulario, but others whispered more fearful things. Witch, seer, spirit guide. Some even said she wasn't fully human anymore. Eloy hadn't seen her since he was 7, when his mother brought him there once after he had a fever that wouldn't break. That night, Eloy packed a small bag, wrapped the stone in a cloth, and told Taunton he needed to see someone. "Don't go alone," Taunton warned, his eyes filled with unease. "If this is about what happened last night, I'll come with you." They journeyed through narrow trails, past dry fields and blackened trees. When they reached the old bamboo bridge near the river, they found her small house, made of old nipa, surrounded by strange herbs and hanging bones that clattered in the wind. The scent of ash and flowers filled the air. Before Eloy could even knock, the door creaked open. "I've been waiting," came a voice, raspy but strong. Matandang Solong stood at the doorway, wrapped in layers of faded red cloth, her eyes white with cataracts, but her gaze sharp and piercing. "You carry it now." The Mutya finally awakened. Eloy and Taunton stepped in. The house was filled with old books, dried leaves, bottles of strange liquids, and masks made of wood and animal skin. Eloy placed the wrapped stone on the table. "What is it really?" he asked, voice low. Solong sat slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she opened the cloth. The stone pulsed with a dull red light. "This is Mutya Inglalem, a relic of balance between the realms. Long ago, your ancestors were chosen as its keepers. It was never meant to be found again, not until the signs returned." Eloy frowned. "Signs?" She nodded. The black sky even at dawn, the river pulling backward. The return of the Tagapagpazin Inganino, the shadow bringers. Eloy's heart pounded. A swangs. "No," she whispered. "Worse. MGA Ananong Yu. Cursed spirits fed by grief and blood. They come from the fourth layer, the one below our world, beneath the soil, under the roots of forgotten trees. And they've started leaking through." Taunton's voice cracked. "What do they want?" They want the mutia and the heart of its bearer. Eloy stepped back. Then why me? Why not someone else? Solong stared at him, the wind outside beginning to howl. Because your mother tried to destroy it, and your father tried to use it. Both failed, and now you are what's left. He felt like the world tipped sideways. My mother, she didn't leave? Solong closed her eyes. She tried to protect you, but she knew something had already marked your family. When she went into the river that night, it wasn't to disappear, it was to hide the mutia. But it was too late. Taunton stepped beside Eloy, silent. The old woman rose slowly and placed her hand on Eloy's forehead. You feel it now, don't you? The fire in your blood, the whispers in the wind. That's not madness, child. That's memory of another realm. She reached for a bundle wrapped in animal skin. Inside was a dagger, silver, curved, with engravings of eyes and vines. This is Balarawing Alangonga, the blade that can sever ties between worlds. You'll need it. Eloy hesitated to touch it. His hand hovered above it, unsure. You're not ready, Solong added. But you must begin. And so, in the heart of the forest, with Taunton watching anxiously, Eloy began his training. It wasn't like in movies or books. There were no flashy moves, no grand spells. Only long hours of silence, learning how to listen to the wind, the water, even to the mutia. Solong taught him how to track the signs of spirit presence, cold spots, inverted leaves, dead birds in threes. She showed him how to smear Dagda Ingbanaba on his skin to hide his scent from watchers. And he learned how to control his fear, how not to run when the shadows stretched toward him. But even with all this, the mutia pulsed stronger each night, and the air felt heavier. One evening, as they returned from gathering herbs, they found a carcass near Solong's door. A dog, drained of blood, eyes wide open, legs broken backwards. Taunton nearly vomited. They're watching, Solong said simply. They're almost here. That night, Eloy dreamed of fire. A great pit in the earth opening beneath him. Voices calling his name, not with hatred, but with longing. Like family, like blood. When he woke up, his hand was clenched tight. Inside it was a single scale, shimmering black. He ran to Solong. She gasped. That's from Alactin Inglalum, one of the 4 guardians of the Anino Gate. But how? The gate, she whispered, is starting to crack. And then she looked at Eloy, really looked at him, her eyes full of sorrow and fear. There is something else I haven't told you. The mutia isn't just a key, it's a prison, a seal. And every time you hold it, every time it beats, something beneath us stirs. Eloy's knees weakened. So if I keep using it, you may unlock something no one can stop. The weight of his bloodline, his parents' mistakes, the burden of a power he never asked for, it all pressed down on him. But the world wouldn't wait. Outside, the trees were whispering again. Something was coming, and Eloy was running out of time. The next few days blurred into one long, heavy stretch of gray hours. Eloy trained when the sun was out and sat in silence when the moon rose. Each moment felt like he was carrying more than just a weapon or a mutia. It was like he was dragging the weight of choices he didn't make, of sins passed down, of secrets buried too long. He stopped asking Solong about his parents. He wasn't sure he wanted more answers, but the thoughts came on their own. Why didn't his mother tell him about this before she vanished? Why did his father lie all those years? What kind of life could have been his if they had just tried? And deep inside, the hardest thought lingered like a thorn. Maybe they gave up on him. He stared at his reflection once, in a basin of still water outside Solong's hut. His face had changed. Eyes darker, lips tight, shoulders always tense. Tana noticed too. They barely spoke now, not because of anger, but because both were afraid of what silence might reveal. One night, while resting under the trees, they heard it. A low, soft singing. Not beautiful, not human. It drifted from the woods, past the dried riverbed. The kind of melody that made your skin crawl, like fingers brushing the back of your neck. So Long stood slowly and whispered, "Stay inside." But Eloy moved. He didn't understand why. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe the mutio was pulling him. He followed the sound, step by careful step, until the trees swallowed him. Then he saw it. A woman, pale as bone, standing barefoot in the clearing. Her hair long and wet, her back turned to him. She was singing softly to the moon. But when she turned around, Eloy felt his stomach twist. She had no mouth, only skin stretched tight where lips should be, and eyes that looked too far inside him. He staggered back. The creature didn't chase him. It just stared, tilting its head slightly like it knew him. Eloy turned and ran. Back in the hut, So Long was waiting, holding a bowl of burning herbs. She didn't yell. "They're testing the edges," she said. "The Watchers, messengers of the deeper ones. They don't attack yet. They watch. They remember." That night, Eloy couldn't sleep. The woman's face haunted him. Yes, but what haunted him more was how she looked at him, like they had met before. And then the question hit him. What if I'm not just fighting the curse? What if I'm part of it? The next morning, while So Long searched for a rare root in the forest, Taunton and Eloy sat near the old river. For a while, they just listened to the wind. Then Taunton spoke. "You ever think maybe we're not supposed to fix this?" he said softly. "Like, maybe we're just delaying something bigger?" Eloy didn't answer right away. He threw a stone into the dry riverbed and watched it bounce. "I think I was born in the middle of something I never wanted," he finally said. "And now, even if I run, it's still going to find me." Taunton looked away, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want you to die trying to fix their mess." Eloy nodded slowly. "Me too." They went back to So Long's hut and found the door slightly open. Inside, the air smelled of rot. So Long wasn't there. But on the floor was a feather, long, black, almost oily, and a trail of dead leaves leading out the back. They followed it carefully, weapons ready. The trail led them to a hollowed tree, older than anything they had seen. At its base was a small shrine of bones and stones, and beside it, So Long, unconscious, her hands clutching something wrapped in cloth. Taunton ran to her. She stirred, weak but alive. "He found me," she said. "Who?" Eloy asked. She slowly unwrapped the cloth. Inside was another stone, cracked in the middle and pulsing with blue light. "The twin," she whispered. "The camballing mutia. It was buried to balance yours. But now it's awake. And it's angry." Eloy stared at it. 2 stones, 2 powers, and only one bearer. He started to feel it then, a tug inside him like something was waking up, something that didn't belong to him. Or maybe something he had kept buried his whole life. Memories, not just of his childhood, but of dreams. Dreams of burning trees, of a voice calling him from under the soil, of laughter that turned into screams. The mutia was unlocking something in him, and it was not all good. That night, as they lit protective wards around the hut, Eloy sat alone. He stared at both stones side by side on the mat. The red one throbbed gently, like a heartbeat. The blue one pulsed in a different rhythm. 2 halves of something ancient. And he wondered, again, if maybe the enemy wasn't just out there. Maybe it was inside him. That was when the sound came, a creaking, soft and slow. Not from outside, from under the hut. Eloy grabbed his blade and crouched near the floor. Taunton joined him, eyes wide with fear. They listened. Creak, creak, then silence. Eloy slowly lifted the bamboo mat. Nothing. Then a shadow moved. Fast, sharp, crawling toward the back wall. Eloy threw salt toward it. The thing hissed and vanished through the cracks. They searched but found nothing. Only claw marks, and a whisper in the corner. "You belong to us." Taunton wanted to leave. Go far away. Escape whatever was coming. But Eloy shook his head. If I run, he said, they'll follow. If I fight, maybe we can end this. But what if you become one of them? That question sat heavy in the air. Eloy didn't answer, because deep inside, he didn't know. He still heard the voice at night, the one from his dreams. It was louder now, closer, and sometimes it didn't sound like a stranger. Sometimes it sounded like his mother. Every morning, Eloy felt the pressure tightening around him, like a rope slowly pulling against his ribs. The air had changed, thicker, heavier, always with the faint scent of smoke or something burnt. Even the trees no longer whispered gently in the wind. They stood still, as if holding their breath. He knew time was running out. The enemy, whatever it truly was getting stronger. The signs were no longer just whispers or shadows in the night. Now, animals were vanishing from the nearby woods. Birds stopped singing, and once Eloy found a deer with its eyes open, unmoving, skin pale like it had been drained of life. It hadn't bled. It hadn't struggled. Just stopped being. So long barely slept. She brewed deeper potions, whispered older prayers. Her face, once full of quiet strength, now showed cracks. Worry lined her eyes. She confessed one night that the enemy had begun to cross thresholds that no dark being dared touch before. They're not afraid anymore, she said. Something's waking them, or leading them. Eloy didn't ask who. He already feared the answer. The twin Mutia, blue and red, still pulsed in their opposite rhythms. Sometimes he heard them hum when placed side by side. Sometimes they shook gently like something inside wanted to escape. He trained harder. Every slash, every movement was done with anger he no longer knew how to name. Was it for his missing parents? For his stolen childhood? For the fear he saw in Tanan's eyes? Tanan had changed too. He no longer joked. His laugh came less often. He followed Eloy everywhere now, even during early dawn rituals. But Eloy knew his friend was afraid, not just of what they would face, but of what Eloy might become. One evening, while sharpening his blade, Eloy heard Taunton whisper to Solong behind the hut. What if the stones are too strong for him? Solong didn't answer right away. Then she said quietly, then we hope his heart is stronger. Eloy didn't let them know he heard, but stayed with him. That doubt. Was his heart strong, or had too much already broken? The next night brought a deeper chill. Fires wouldn't stay lit. The Mutia glowed brighter. And when Eloy looked up at the sky, he noticed the moon. It was wrong. Not full, not crescent. Just a shape, pulsing, changing, like it was watching. Then came the scream. From the village down the path, 3 miles away. A long, drawn-out cry of something not quite human. And yet Eloy recognized it. It was the same scream from his dream when he was younger. The same one his mother once woke up to, clutching him tightly in her arms, whispering prayers through shaking lips. They ran, Taunton beside him, blade in hand. Solong followed slower, carrying her protective charms. When they reached the village, there was no fire, no blood, no bodies. But no people either. Just empty houses, food still warm in bowls. Beds unmade, toys scattered in doorways. Like everyone had just disappeared. Solong searched the soil. Her face turned pale. No footprints, she whispered. No straged. They were taken. By what? Taunton asked. Eloy already knew. The Watchers. The ones who waited before. Now they were moving, gathering. And if they were gathering, then something worse was coming. They stayed the night at the village edge, but no sleep came. Eloy sat outside, watching the Mutia glow against the dark. He could feel something inside him, like a second pulse. Like something from far away was calling through his veins. Not with words, just a pull. He almost followed it. But then he remembered Solong's warning. Not all voices that sound familiar are friends. He stayed still. The next day, Solong finally revealed what she had long feared. There's more than one enemy, she said, and one of them is wearing a face you know. That hit Eloy harder than any truth before. He didn't ask who. He was too afraid of the answer. Instead, he asked how long they had. Solong looked up at the sky, her eyes tracing a pale shape near the horizon. Not long, she said. They're preparing for the harvest moon. That's when the veil between the worlds thins, when they'll try to cross completely. Eloy clenched his fists. We stopped them before that. She handed him something, an old necklace with a cracked black stone in the center. This belonged to your mother, she said. She gave it up to protect you. Eloy stared at it, heart pounding. He didn't remember it, but it felt familiar, like a memory that never got the chance to bloom. He wore it under his shirt, close to his skin, close to whatever remained of the truth. That afternoon, he trained harder. Not just swordplay, but chants, symbols, how to carve protection into the earth, how to blend his blood with the Mutya without losing himself. Taunton helped, though his hands trembled during the chants. I'm not like you, he said. I know, Eloy answered. That's why I need you. Taunton managed a small smile. They prepared their weapons, strengthened their wards, and waited for signs. The signs came quickly. The next night, blackbirds fell from the sky, dozens of them, wings torn but no wounds. A howl echoed from the riverbed, dry and cracked, yet soaked with the scent of wet earth. Solong burned incense until her eyes watered. Then came the fog, thick, unnatural. It rolled in from nowhere, swallowing trees, then huts, then hills. And inside it, silhouettes, tall, thin, not quite human. They didn't come closer. They just stood, watching. Eloy felt the Mutya heat up. The twin stones hummed in his bag, and his vision blurred for a moment. Not with fear, but with something deeper. Memory. He saw his mother again, but not running, not afraid. She was standing in front of something massive and shapeless, and whispering the same chants Solong had taught him. Then the image vanished. He gasped. Taunton held his shoulder. You okay? Eloy nodded slowly. She tried to stop this. Years ago. Taunton's eyes widened. Did she fail? Eloy looked at the fog, still thick and alive with shadows. I don't know, he said, but we won't. As the night deepened, the enemy remained in the mist, still waiting, still preparing. And Eloy, with firelight flickering against his skin, prepared too, though inside, the doubts clawed at him like the watchers in his dreams. Would his heart hold, or would the curse consume what little of him was left? That night, the fog didn't leave. Even when the sun tried to rise, its light barely touched the land. Everything stayed gray. The birds stayed silent. The wind stopped moving. Eloy stood near the hut, his fingers gently tracing the black stone necklace his mother had once worn. The twin Mutya in his pouch now pulsed faster, like a heart beating in panic. And he felt it. Something had shifted. Something bigger than shadows. Bigger than fear. They were being watched, not just by the enemy, but by something older. Solong was inside, chanting protection prayers. Taunton sat nearby, sharpening a wooden spear, though his eyes weren't focused. He looked like he was trying to remember who he used to be before all this began. Eloy felt the same. He didn't even know if he was still just Eloy, or if he was becoming someone or something else. Later that afternoon, Solong called him inside. There, on the floor, she had drawn a new sigil. It was older than the one she had used before, rough, wild, like it came from a forgotten language. In the center was a bowl filled with river stones and ashes. I've been lying to you, she said, voice low. Eloy froze. You deserve to know before the final night comes. He said nothing, just waited. She sat down, her eyes tired. I wasn't just your mother's friend. I was sent to watch over you, from the time you were born. Watch over me, Eloy whispered. Why? Because of what you carry. You're not just a boy chosen by the stones. You're the last thread of a broken pact. She pointed to the twin Mutia. They didn't choose you by accident. Your blood is part of what sealed the first rift between this world and the realm of shadows. Eloy felt cold. She explained, decades ago, before his birth, there had been a battle between powerful albularios and dark creatures trying to break through the veil. One side used human blood to close the rift, but not just any blood. It had to be the blood of a child born under a cursed moon, from a line connected to both worlds. His family had been that line. His mother gave up her power to protect him. His father had vanished trying to hide the truth. And now, the rift was opening again. But worse, the enemy had found another way to break through, using someone from Eloy's own bloodline. Someone alive. Who? Eloy asked, voice shaking. Solong looked away. Your brother. Eloy's knees gave way. He sat on the floor, unable to breathe for a moment. I don't have a brother. You do, Solong said gently. Older than you. Taken as a baby by the enemy. Raised in the other realm. Twisted. Lies, Eloy said, standing. But deep down something clicked. A memory. Not his own, but like a dream he kept forgetting. A small child's laugh. Eyes like his. Then, a scream in the dark. Solong placed her hand over his. He's not fully gone, but they've poisoned him. He believes you're the key to opening the rift completely. Taunton had come to the doorway, pale as ash. We've been training to fight strangers, he said. But it's family? Eloy didn't answer. He couldn't. Later, alone by the river, Eloy threw stones into the water, one by one. His hands trembled. Why didn't they tell him sooner? Why hide everything? He wanted to scream, but instead, he stared into the water and whispered, Are you real? As if an answer, the water rippled. And then, a figure rose from the deep. Not a monster. Not a threat. A shokoi, tall, scaled, with long black hair that floated around its head like seaweed. Its eyes glowed like underwater fire. It didn't speak at first, just stared. Then, with a voice that echoed from deep inside the riverbed, it said, You're not ready. I don't care, Eloy said. You will, it replied. The shokoi reached into its chest and pulled something glowing, a shell. But not ordinary. This one shimmered with ancient symbols and colors that changed like oil on water. This is the heart of the tide, it said. One of 3 gifts left behind by the guardians of the old seal. You'll need it when your blood is tested. Eloy took it. It was warm, alive. When the moon bleeds, the shokoi said, so will you. And then it vanished into the water. That night, Solong warned him again. There's still more you don't know, and more you won't like. But Eloy didn't want more secrets. He only wanted to be ready. Over the next days, they prepared harder. The mist never left. Creatures moved through it, twisting, testing, mocking. They began finding messages scratched into trees. Symbols Eloy had never seen, but which made his skin crawl. Words in a dead tongue, meant to call the Veil's guardians away. Then one night it happened. Eloy woke up, and Tannen was gone. His bed empty. The twin Mutia cold. The shell from a shokoi dim. A piece of bark sat on his bed. Scratched into it. He waits for you. Alone. Eloy didn't hesitate. He grabbed his blade. The Mutia. The shell. And ran into the fog. Alone. Solong's voice chased him faintly, but he didn't stop. This was no longer about prophecy. This was about saving the only person left who believed in him. The mist grew thicker. Strange whispers followed. He saw shapes, eyes, claws, faces half-formed in the dark. Then a clearing. And there, standing at the center, was Taunton, unharmed. But behind him stood a boy, slightly taller than Eloy, eyes just like his. He smiled. You finally came, little brother. Eloy's chest tightened. His legs felt like stone. The boy stepped forward. I've waited years to meet you. You're everything they said. Soft, afraid, bound by guilt. Taunton tried to speak, but the boy raised a finger, and Taunton froze in place like a statue. "Let him go," Eloy shouted. "Why?" the boy said. "He's just a weakness. Like so long. Like our parents." Eloy stepped closer. "They're not your enemies. They left me," the boy growled, his voice warping. "They let the enemy take me. You lived. I was devoured." His eyes turned black. "You have something I need," he said. "And when the moon rises, I will take it. Your blood, your power. The rift will open." And then the earth shook. The trees groaned. And from a mist, dozens of dark forms emerged. Eyes gleaming, mouths grinning too wide. The watchers had come, but so had the brother. And Eloy, standing there with a shaking hand and a burning shell in his palm, realized this wasn't just a battle for the world. It was a war for his soul. The forest stood unnaturally still. The fog no longer drifted gently. It hung in the air like it was waiting. Eloy gripped the burning shell, feeling its pulse match the thunder in his chest. Around him, shadows whispered, voices he couldn't fully understand, like forgotten prayers spoken backwards. Taunton was frozen beside the boy, Eloy's brother, his face locked in silent fear. The boy stepped forward, no longer hiding behind mystery. "You feel it, don't you?" his voice echoed. "This is the moment the veil thins. Our blood makes it possible." Eloy didn't answer. His heart was loud, too loud, not just because of fear, but because of pain. This boy was his brother, stolen, twisted, raised in darkness. And yet, he still looked like someone Eloy might have loved if life had been different. "I didn't ask for this," Eloy whispered. "Neither did I," his brother growled. "But here we are." The watchers, creatures of fog and hunger, began to form a wide circle, sealing them in. Eloy's hand reached for the twin Mutya in his pouch. One stone glowed white-blue, the other red like dying coals. They pulsed in rhythm with the glowing shell from the Shokoi, like three hearts connected by one fate. The brother lifted his hand, and the mist responded, swirling into shapes. Beasts with hollow faces, ghosts with too many arms. They moaned softly, as if mourning the living. "You've been trained," the boy said, "but you're not ready. You still cling to kindness." "And you threw yours away," Eloy replied. The brother laughed bitterly. "I had to survive." Then the boy raised his other hand, and the forest floor split open, revealing a pit of writhing black roots and dark flame. From it, a strange light glowed, like a portal waiting to be born. The rift, Eloy realized. "You're opening it now." "I don't need your permission," the boy said. "Just your blood." The creatures charged. Eloy didn't think. He moved. With a deep breath, he threw the glowing shell to the ground. The moment it shattered, a wave of light burst outward, pushing the spirits back, making the watchers scream. It didn't destroy them, but it made them hesitate. Just enough. Eloy rushed to Taunton's side, slamming the Mutius stones together in his hands. The force sent a shock through the ground. The boy stumbled. "Wake up," Eloy shouted, placing one Mutia on Taunton's chest. The red stone glowed brightly, and Taunton gasped, his limbs breaking free from the spell. "Eloy," he choked. He's strong. We don't need to match his strength," Eloy said, eyes locked on his brother. "We need to remember who we are." The mist thickened again. The watcher screamed. The brother's hands ignited in black fire. "You won't stop me," he shouted. Taunton pulled Eloy behind a tree just as the fire hit. The bark burned, but the tree didn't fall. It shimmered for a moment, revealing strange runes under its skin. "A spirit tree," Taunton whispered. "It's protecting us." "They're watching too," Eloy muttered. "The old ones." Suddenly, Solong's voice echoed through the air, though she was nowhere to be seen. "The blood that seals must also heal." Eloy's head spun. The old chant, not just for sealing darkness, but for restoring broken bonds. Taunton, Eloy said. The Mutia, it's not a weapon. It's a bridge. What do you mean? I can't destroy him. He's part of me. Eloy stepped into the clearing again. I won't fight you, he told his brother. Then die, the boy shouted, launching another burst of fire. But Eloy raised the Mutia, both stones glowing now, and crossed them in front of his chest. The flames hit and vanished. The light from the stones expanded in a ring, pushing the mist outward. The watchers screamed louder. No, the brother roared. You can't. Eloy walked forward slowly. The closer he got, the more the stones pulsed, like they recognized the boy's pain. He reached into his shirt, pulling out a small leather pouch, his mother's. Inside was a third stone, dull, broken. My mother tried to save us, Eloy said. She failed, but I won't. He pressed the broken stone to the two glowing ones. At first, nothing happened. Then, the light burst, not in anger, in warmth. It spread from Eloy's chest to his arms, to the clearing, to the trees. Even the watchers stopped moving. The rift pulsed. The boy screamed, falling to his knees. No, they promised me power. They gave me everything. They took everything, Eloy said. Your name, your light, your choice. He stepped closer. The boy's eyes, once black, now flickered with blue. Help me, he whispered for the first time of a child. Eloy placed the 3 stones into his brother's hand. The light surrounded them both. The mist twisted violently, then collapsed inward. The portal shrieked, then cracked like glass. The watchers howled, vanishing one by one, pulled back into the void. The forest shuddered. Then silence. Real silence. The kind that feels like peace. Taunton rushed forward, grabbing Eloy by the arm. Are you okay? Eloy didn't answer. His brother lay in the grass, unconscious but breathing. Alive. The stones had turned gray, empty. But the light lingered in the air, floating gently like soft fireflies. Solong appeared behind them, stepping from the trees. You did it, she whispered. Eloy shook his head. Not yet. He looked at the sky. The moon was full, but no longer bleeding. Just watching. Peaceful. Later, they brought the boy, his brother, back to Solong's hut. He hadn't woken yet, but his breathing was steady. Eloy sat beside him, watching the rise and fall of his chest. I used to dream, Eloy whispered, that I had someone beside me when I was scared. Maybe that was him. Maybe he dreamed the same, but no one came. Solong placed a gentle hand on Eloy's shoulder. Your choice didn't just close a rift, she said. It reminded the world that mercy is stronger than fire. Taunton entered with a small plate of food. He'll wake up hungry. Eloy smiled weakly. He hoped so, but just as he stood to leave, a gust of wind blew the door open. And for a second, Eloy swore he saw a shadow watching from the trees. Not one of the watchers. Something else. A figure wrapped in white cloth, face hidden. Then it vanished. Taunton turned. Did you see? Eloy nodded slowly. The rift is closed, he said, but the forest remembers. Morning came quietly. For the first time in many nights, the forest was still, not silent with fear, but resting. Birds began to return. The cold mist lifted like a curtain being drawn after a long, dark play. Eloy stood outside the hut, staring at the treetops. His arms still felt heavy from the night before. His thoughts even heavier. Inside, his brother was asleep, peaceful, no longer twisted by the shadows of the watchers. His face, no longer tense, now looked like someone who simply missed being loved. Eloy watched him earlier, feeling both pain and hope. Taunton sat beside a small fire, trying to cook something warm. We'll need to go back to the village soon, he said gently. They'll want to know what happened. Eloy nodded slowly, still not speaking. The truth was, he didn't know how to explain it. Not just the Watchers, or the portal, or the cursed blood, but the fact that the person they fought last night was once part of his family. His own blood. He sighed and sat beside Taunton. For a moment, they said nothing. Just let the fire crackle. Just listen to the forest breathe. You made the right choice, you know, Taunton finally said. I don't know if I did, Eloy replied softly. What if he wakes up and still chooses the darkness? What if everything I did wasn't enough? Taunton poked the fire. Maybe it's not about being enough. Maybe it's just about not giving up. Eloy glanced at him, then down at his hands. The 3 Mutia stones were now dull, like river stones washed clean. Their glow was gone, but Eloy still kept them close. A reminder of what was saved and what was lost. Later that day, they packed up what little they had. Solon gave Eloy a small satchel with herbs, a wooden comb carved with old runes, and a jar of moon oil. For healing, she said, not just wounds, the kind of healing that takes time. Eloy bowed respectfully. Thank you. For everything. Solon smiled, but her eyes stayed serious. The Watchers are gone, but not all darkness lives in the forest. Some of it stays in people's hearts. Even yours. He knew she was right. They carried his brother gently on a hammock tied to a bamboo pole. Taunton led the way, while Eloy kept his eyes on every shadow, every fluttering leaf. But nothing attacked them. No whispers followed. Only the wind, gentle and curious. When they reached the village, people stared. Whispers followed like insects. Some pointed at Eloy's brother, recognizing him from old stories. Others looked at Eloy as if he was no longer the same boy who had once begged for leftover rice. And maybe he wasn't. The Barangi captain came forward. His eyes narrowed. Is it over? Eloy nodded. Yes, but something was left behind. He didn't explain. The village didn't need every detail. Only the truth that mattered. That the curse was broken. That the forest would sleep again. That the boy they feared was no longer their enemy. Some people accepted it. Others didn't. But that was okay. Not every scar fades just because the bleeding stops. In the weeks that followed, Eloy stayed near the forest edge, rebuilding the old nipa hut his mother once owned. It was half-burnt, abandoned for years. He didn't rebuild it perfectly, but it stood again, with strong walls and space for 3 sleeping mats. His brother finally woke up. At first, he couldn't speak, only stared at the sky like it was something he had never seen before. Then he cried, not the loud, angry cry of a child throwing a fit, but the quiet, broken cry of someone realizing he's still alive after being lost too long. Eloy didn't say anything. He just sat beside him, day after day, until the boy, whose name was Elian, finally asked, Do you hate me? Eloy said no. I hated myself enough for both of us, he added. Taunton visited often, sometimes bringing food, sometimes bad jokes. He treated Elian like a real person, not a monster. And Elian slowly smiled again. Sometimes at night, Eloy would walk near the trees and press his palm to the bark of the spirit tree that once protected them. And sometimes he thought he heard it breathe back. The village slowly healed too. Old stories about the dark child began to change. Kids whispered different versions now, of a boy with magic stones and a brother who forgave him. The elders didn't confirm it, but they didn't deny it either. One day, while washing clothes by the river, Eloy found something glimmering in the sand. A seashell, not glowing but familiar. He picked it up and smiled. Maybe the Shokoi were still watching. Maybe not, but he felt watched in a good way. Protected. He placed the shell on a small altar near his rebuilt hut, next to the dull stones and a drawing of his mother made from charcoal. One evening, a traveling albulario came through the village. He looked at Eloy and asked, You're the boy from the forest? Eloy nodded. The albulario took a seat, smiling slowly. I've heard your story, he said. You know, Not many choose to say what everyone else has already given up on. Eloy looked at the fire. Sometimes I wonder if I saved him, or if he saved me. The albulario chuckled. There's no difference. Mercy always saves two souls. Then he stood, placed a small folded cloth in Eloy's hand, and left. Inside the cloth, a new stone. Not red, not blue, but green. Life. Eloy placed it beside the other stones. No magic this time, just meaning. Weeks passed. Elian learned how to farm, how to smile, how to sleep without screaming. He still had shadows behind his eyes, and Eloy knew some scars would never fully heal. But healing didn't mean forgetting. It meant surviving with meaning, and building something stronger where something had once broken. One night, as the three sat around a fire, Eloy, Taunton, and Elian, lightning flashed in the far mountains. But no thunder followed, just silence. Elian glanced at his brother. Do you think they're still out there? The Watchers. Eloy looked up at the sky. Maybe. Are you scared? He thought for a moment, then said, Not anymore. Elian nodded. Taunton reached over, breaking a boiled camote in half and handing it to Elian. I'm more scared of my cooking than any Watcher, he joked. They all laughed, soft and real. The kind of laugh that meant something had healed. And as the fire crackled, as the night gently covered them, Eloy looked at the three stones again. Broken, faded, but still here. Like them. And he whispered, just loud enough for the wind to hear, We don't forget. We forgive. That's how the darkness loses.